Welcome back once again. So in this video I'll be showing you how to draft your simple princess dart pattern. It's going to be easy and very simple to draft. So I'm going to be making use of my basic bodice pattern. I traced out the neckline, the shoulder line, and that armhole curve. Also drawing my bust line, my under bust, and my waistline, as you can see. And then I'm going to put my basic bodice aside. Then the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to divide our bust span by 2. As my bust span is 8 divided by 2, which is 4. So I'm going to place it at, I made a mistake. I wasn't supposed to place it at my armhole line, but I later figured that out in the video. You're not going to place it at your armhole line. You're going to place it at your bust line, your under bust, and at your waistline. So here I just went to my under bust and I marked the 4 inches, my waistline and marked the 4 inches. So I'm going to connect the points together. I think it was here that I realized that, so I started, like, I then made the correction and I said you're going to make it at your bust, you're going to do it as your bust line, not your armhole line. So I went in there to just cancel it out. I told you don't do it at your armhole line. So I'm going to connect the new 3 points together with a straight line. This is what you're going to have. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape and I'm going to measure this armhole curve like so. I'm going to show you how to do it now. I took my tape, I followed that curve line all the way to the end like so. I got 9 inches. So there, I got 9 inches. So what I did was to divide the 9 inches by 2. What I'm basically doing is we're just finding the midpoint of that armhole curve. Mine is 4.5. 9 divided by 2 give me 4.5. That's 4.5. I'm going to mark it there at that my armhole curve. I'll follow the curve and mark it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark half an inch from both sides of that point there. It's my armhole curve, half an inch like so. Then the next thing I'm going to do is at my bust line I'm going to come up by 1 inch like so. At my bust line I'm going to come up by 1 inch. Then I'm going to connect these 3 points that I have in my armhole curve. I'm going to connect them down to that 1 inch that I drew upwards like so. I'm going to use my long ruler to do this. So this is it. Then the next thing that we're going to do is, you know that we took 1 inch from that point, that's half an inch, so we're going to extend this lower at that line. We're going to extend it by 1 inch, because if you don't do it you're going to have shortage of fabric when you're sewing it. So you're going to extend this point by 1 inch because we removed 1 inch that at that armhole curve. Then we're going to curve in this point to back into our armhole line like so. You can use your free hand or your French curve. I decided to use my free hand here, but please ensure you use your French curve if you have. Then I went in to define the line as like so. So that will become your new armhole curve. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to mark 1 inch below this bust line like so. 1 inch below. The reason why we're doing this is to avoid friction there, to make it relaxed. So at our under bust line I'm going to deduct 1 inch from both sides of the dart line. I'll do the same thing at my waistline too. So we're going to draw in the dart. So we're going to draw in a straight line, then we're going to draw in the curve which connects that point to the under bust. I'm just using my French curve to draw in the dart line, to draw in the curve like so. So I'm going to use my long ruler and I'm going to draw in a straight line like that. As you can see, the blouse is coming to shape now. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to like smoothen out that edge, like I'm going to connect it with the curve. I just decided to use my free hand to do it here. So like I said, I'm just using my hand, my free hand, to just smoothen it out. You can use your French curve or your hip curve to do this. So the next thing that I'm going to do is to input my horizontal measurement like so. So we're going to start at our armhole curve, so our armhole line, sorry. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide our bust measurement by 4. So minus 34 divided by 4, which gave me 8.5. I'm going to mark it there, 8.5, like so. So I'm going to measure the dart intake I took here, which is 1 inch, and you're going to add it back to your armhole line, because this is your armhole curve. So you'll be adding in that dart intake at your armhole line. Make sure you do this. If not, your blouse is not going to be good when you cut and sew it. So I added back my 1 inch there, and I'm going to mark 1 inch for joining these two dots together while sewing, which is 1 inch. Note that this allowance is just for joining the dots. It's not your side seam allowance like for joining the front and the back together. No, this is just your dart allowance like for joining the dots together. So we're going to come to our waistline, and I'm going to divide my waist measurement by 4. Minus 28 divided by 4, I got 7. So I'm going to place my measuring tape like so, and I'm going to mark 7 plus 2-inch darts, which I took there, then plus 1 inch for sewing these darts together, which I marked here. Then I'm going to connect these 2 points together with a straight line like so. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add our side seam allowance and our hem allowance like so. I'm going to use 1 inch, and I'm going to also add 1 inch at this armhole curve, like in case I'm going to join these bodies with a sleeve or something. I'm going to add it. I'm also going to add it at the top edge. I'll show you how to do it. So I added half an inch at the armhole, 1 inch by the side, and 1 inch by the hem. So I decided I was going to add my half an inch also at the top edge like so. This half an inch is for joining it to your sleeve like so. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to cut out this pattern. I'm going to cut out the darts, and so for this pattern, you're going to make, like for the back of this pattern, you're going to make use of your basic bodies, unless you want to make some changes to the back or so, but you can use your basic bodies for the back. Add your seam allowance, add your dart allowance, and the rest. You can use your basic bodies for the back of this pattern. It's not hard to draft, like just watch my basic bodies picture illustration. This is very easy to draft. So I was going to make use of my, so for this pattern I'm just going to make use of my basic back bodies. So this is it. I cut out the dart for this side, and I'm just going in there to also cut out this part too, and I'll show you the end result. So this is the dots. I cut it out. This is my princess dart pattern. As you can see, it's very easy to draft. No too much calculations and the rest. You can also decide to add bust darts to this, but I decided not to do so. You can draft different necklines to this, not just this U-shaped neckline that I did. You can draft your V-neck and the rest. This is just your simple princess dart pattern. Thank you very much for watching.